Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Beyond Borders, a space for honest conversations where people, technology, art and mental health meet. We're here to explore what's changing, what matters and what it means to stay human in the middle of it all. I'm Carolyn Hammond, and as always, I'm joined by the brilliant Pim, founder of Digitize, and the ever-thoughtful Sprenko, writer and founder of The Real Talk Of. Today, we're diving into something that lives at the intersection of creativity, visibility, and identity: branding for artists. Now, many artists think their art is their brand, but it isn't. Your art is a reflection of your brand, but it's not the whole story. Because branding, in its deepest sense, isn't about logos or sales funnels. It's about recognisability, consistency, and presence. It's about the you people feel before they even see what you've made. In a world where more and more of us wear multiple hats, where we might be artists, authors, mentors, podcasters, creators, the list goes on, that clarity becomes even more important. Because when your work spans formats, your brand is the thread that ties it all together. So, in this episode, we're asking, who are you beyond what you create? What do people feel when they encounter your work? And is your message the only one you can deliver coming through clearly? So let's get into it, Pim, Sprenko. We often think that our work speaks for itself, and in a way it does, but it doesn't explain us, does it? It doesn't reveal our why, our values, our emotional tone behind what we're making. And branding for me is, it allows us, it allows someone to feel who you are before they even know what you do. So to you, Pim, first, you've worked a lot with creators who want to be seen for more than their output. Why do you think branding is such a sticking point for many artists? And how do we begin to untangle ourselves from this idea that my art should be enough?
I think because of people think that their brand and the art are the same thing. That's why artists want to showcase this is my art, this is my brand, and then all the information that actually is needed to explain that isn't explained. That's why branding stays a little bit of a sticking point because no real brands are being made without the explanation. Good thing is then when you have the explanation, people can understand the art more, which slowly builds a brand. And if you like it or not, you need a brand in some way to get collectors, get deals, get promotions, get, for example, fun projects to do that align with your brand. Businesses are they are searching for people that fit their brand. So if you don't have a brand, they are unsure. But if you have a brand and they see that you fit, then there's a bigger chance that you have a project. But the problem is when creating a brand, as a beginning artist, you're really not sure what art fits for you. You're not sure what art aligns with others. So in the beginning, you might work with a lot of different stuff than in the end that you want to achieve. That's why the brand is getting more difficult the moment you start changing up your art or changing up your way of work. For my instance, I really like to work with art that has a certain message that is related to news or can be read in some way. But it's not really the art that I started making. I started making just for fun. That is very difficult to make as a brand, but the messages and the art that has a message into them, after it's explained, people mostly tell, "Oh, I like it," and I align with the message that it's told. But the fun thing is they can also say, "Oh, I have this message in the art," which is totally fine. This also shows that people have different perspectives. But building a brand makes it more difficult, just because you're switching things up every year or every X amount of months, or just trying things out. Even with new technologies, when AI came out, people were really standing on, I am not an AI artist, and some people were, I am an AI artist. And what do you see now is that the people who said, I am not an AI artist, you see that they use AI in their work. And for the AI artist, of course, that said, I am an AI artist. Yeah, that speaks for itself. But that also makes it more difficult for them to brand because you need to walk with the technology and the options that it gives. But making your brand is very hard to make a hard stand against something that you deep down you might already know it actually develops into a thing that you might want to use. So that's why brands or building a brand really stands out for an artist. I need to do it. Otherwise, I won't grow my accounts. I won't grow my collector base. I won't do the projects. That's a little bit why people want to make the brands.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? As I was listening to you speaking, I was thinking about how we talk about niches and this need to sort of declare ourselves as either an AI artist or not an AI artist, or a watercolor artist or a digital artist. And that's because, to a large extent, it's how we operate as humans. We need to understand, our brains need to categorize, need to label. But when you think about somebody like Elon Musk, he comes to mind for me. He is the brand. It doesn't matter what he's doing, whether it's Tesla, whether it's SpaceX, whatever else he is involved in, he is his brand. And for me, as artists, that's what we should be doing. It isn't about, trying to market ourselves narrowly. Well, okay, today I'm going to do watercolor and I need a website for watercolor, but tomorrow I'm going to do some digital, or I'm going to be an author and I'm going to need another website for that because people won't understand that I can do both. I think we need to move away from that. We're going to go into that a little bit more in a minute. But yeah, thank you for that. That gives us a lot of food for thought, I think. Spenko, a lot of artists resist the idea of branding. We're touching on this, and I just want to put it to bed before we move on. It can feel too commercial, too performative, like a requirement that we don't kind of want to fit within. But how do we reframe it as something rooted in truth, as the intentional shaping of how we are experienced, not just how we're marketed? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And thank you for that one. It's a very important question that needs to be presented often. It's important that we reframe the way we present the concept of branding, especially for artists and creators. I'm saying that because a lot of times when you pitch branding, it comes off as a marketing strategy, a marketing tactic, a marketing necessity. And for a lot of artists, it's not about, you know, getting viral. It's cool. It sounds interesting. Everybody wants to make money, but people just want to create. People just want to be known for their art, right? So we need to shift. And how I think that can be done is reframe the way we present branding to artists and creators, right? What we can do is shift from branding helps you put you in a positive light as to marketing and visibility, and move into branding is the best way to get people to see you for who you are. Sort of a shift from performative to relational. So you get to dumb it down a little bit, for lack of a better choice of word, and make people understand that you're not trying to fine tune your art or your work or who you are to appeal to people. You're more of showcasing your authentic self in every visually and written way possible that people see you and connect with who you are, the artist behind the art, the creator behind the content. That way, people would feel softer. People would feel more inclined to embrace the concept of branding because it's no longer about you need a logo, you need a website, you need blah 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 blah. It's more about how best can I showcase myself in every other way outside of my art that people will get to connect with who I am as an individual and get acquainted with what I do as an artist. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and it really works. Where I'm going next with this concept of the freedom to explore, and the need to be recognizable. And what you're describing, again, going back to Elon Musk, it's the same kind of thing, isn't it? You have, you develop for yourself a very clear identity authentically, we would advocate that. Then everyone knows who you are within that brand that you have presented, and you have ultimate freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do, just like he does. He doesn't sell himself differently dependent on what he's doing. The
Mm-hmm.
people who follow him know what he is, know what he offers, knows what he brings to the table, and whatever he does, they'll follow. And that is the thing I think that artists need to tap into, and what you're talking about there. And I think one of the reasons this topic matters so much to me is because I've lived it, as many of us have. I'm an artist, I'm also a writer, a mentor, a podcaster. And the truth is, I don't want to choose just one lane. For a long time, creatives have been told to pick a niche, stay in it, decide what it is that you're going to do and stick to it, to focus on one thing so that you are identifiable. But I don't think that fits us anymore. A strong brand should not and doesn't limit you. It frees you, actually. It creates trust and continuity so that even when our output changes, the you behind it still lands clearly. So, Sprinkle, following up then, what do you think gives an artist permission to explore multiple forms of expression without losing their audience or identity? How can we, share with them, sell to them then that this is a good thing, a possible thing for them?
I think it boils down to individual preference and choice of expression. Two artists are not never the same, right? Two writers, two creators are never the same. And to nudge both of them to go in the same direction because one is successful in that direction just doesn't make sense to me. So I would say one of the best ways that we can encourage or nudge artists to explore other phases of their creativity outside of what they're known for would be curiosity. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me, curiosity. Why does that thing interest you? Why does AI art now interest you outside of your regular oil painting that you usually do? Why does pottery interest you? Why do you want to delve into podcasting when you not naturally just speak on spaces? Why do you want to lean more into including audiovisual to your content when you usually just write? That's the first thing that comes to mind for me. When you can dissect your curiosity, understand why you want to seek freedom to create, it gives you room for clarity. And honestly, there's no limitation to what we should or should not do as creators. I don't buy the idea of just stick to one lane, right? If you can be good at something, you can be great at something, keep doing it and impacting positive, change, but nothing stops you from exploring other facets. What's the worst that can happen? You give it a shot, it doesn't work out, you understand that. Now, for me, it's all about the experiences. That's what makes our life here on earth meaningful. I experienced it, I experienced that, I experienced those things, and then I get to pick out what I want out of each experience, use it to better myself and every other person who encounters me. So I think we need to ask really difficult questions. One, about curiosity, and also push that idea, a new version of freedom, where freedom is more about exploring, creating without limits, without walls, which would really open us up for authentic creative processes. That's what I think.
And isn't that what being an artist or creator is all about? It's what we seek, isn't it? So why should we allow branding to contain us when actually it can free us if we do it well and we understand and ask the questions that you've just mentioned? So thank you so much for that, Sprinko. Pim, you've worked with a lot of creators who wear multiple hats. The difference between who feels scattered and someone who feels truly multidimensional? And how can branding help create that sense of alignment?
Good question. I do think artists that don't feel scattered around or don't really know what they want, they have already decided what their style of work is. Definitely what I really noticed for 3D artists, they are very direct. Okay, I am a 3D artist and this is all what I can do, which is a lot. Many things are done with 3D artists nowadays and they can actually build anything they want. They just have to imagine it. And the people who are more scattered are just still discovering what they really like to do, maybe. What technology they like to use, what medium. I think that's the main difference. But when you're looking at branding, might depend more on people who really are working to brand themselves and people who are not working to brand themselves. I've met great artists who are really said, this is my medium, this is the software that I use, this is the way of making art, but they don't focus on branding at all, who are still doing great because they are known for what they do. And you have people who really focus on their brand. This is my brand. This is who I am. This is who I stand for. They can also do great, but in general, when it comes to the medium or software that they use, they might say, well, for this, I like to use, for example, Midjourney or AI. For this, I just like Photoshop and photos, and or maybe even for this, I use 3D. Does that make them more scattered? A little bit. It seems like for the other people looking from the outside to the person, but probably in their mind, they're not that scattered at all. They just the output on their socials is just different. So they probably all are aligned in a certain sense of making their brand. They just have a different approach. I think that's better to say than the one is scattered and the other ones aren't. I think that's just a different approach, maybe with different outcomes. From some it works better than others. But yeah, it's also a little bit on how and who you meet people you're going to work with. Are you going to events, yes or no? Or just on socials? Who do you want to reach and who do you don't want to reach? I think that's more important than, for example, what medium you use or what kind of art you made.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what's super important on the back of what you've just said is that what we don't want is for anybody listening in to feel pressure to brand themselves. Because whether you're feeling scattered, multidimensional, or something in between, or you're trying to find your feet as an artist, sometimes brand emerges, doesn't it? As you talked about somebody who's super successful and doesn't brand. But if you talk to his collectors or people that follow him, they probably have a good handle on who he is, what he does, what he brings to the table, back again to Elon Musk. So I think sometimes over time, accidentally, a brand can emerge. And so anybody listening to this could sort of say to themselves, well, all right, I've been doing this for 5 years now, and I think I've got a brand in there somewhere. And so it might help them just to think about that and to put some meat on it, if you like. So what I want to do now is bring this into a practical reflection for people that are listening. So if you're listening and wondering what your brand even is, or how to start shaping it, here are a few simple questions to sit with. Does your voice feel consistent across platforms? When someone lands on your page, on your website, on your social media, do they feel who you are or just what you sell? What are 3 words would someone use to describe your energy or your presence? And do your offerings, your art, your words, your collaborations, whatever it may be, speak in the same emotional tone. So just give some thought to that, because your brand is never just your product, it's the emotional footprint you leave behind. So, Sprinko, if there's somebody listening that feels like they've lost touch with their brand or never really defined it, what's a healthy starting point for them for reflection or recalibration?
I would say ask yourself this very important question. Who am I at my core? Because at the end of the day, you are one with your brand. Sometimes, especially on, social media and Web3 particularly, you see a lot of accounts, with PFPs of NFT projects, some have AI generated avatars and the likes. And you look at those profiles, marketer, influencer, KOL, artists in between, project founder here and there, and you don't seem to understand who that person is. What do they exactly do? Are you a jack of all trades? Are you a founder exactly? What exactly are you doing in this space? So a lot of times when trying to find your footing, especially in a current, society, when trying to find your footing or when you're trying to, break out, make a name for yourself and all that, you would find yourself dipping your feet in, many waters, right? But it's important to ask yourself, who am I? I love when you mentioned consistency in voice across all platforms. That's a very important thing for me because I don't want to go on X, formerly Twitter, and read a post from Pim, for example, sounding like a compassionate dude who cares about artists. And then when I go on Instagram, I'm seeing a completely different personality. I'm seeing someone who's just all about, if your art is not making me $1 million, I don't want to get anything from it, you know? And then when I go to LinkedIn, I'm seeing only posts about, oh, I sold this art for this person for £1 million, or I sold this, but it's gonna keep me wondering, not who he is, maybe, but if I want to connect with such a person. So, at your core, when you find that you're losing yourself or you don't know how to shape up your brand, ask, who am I? Firstly, what do I do for myself? Why do I want to do what I'm doing? Who do I want people to see me as? Who I do want people to know me as? That would be a very great starting point for you to find yourself and decide, okay, this is how I want to project myself to the world. Not just about people who buy from you or interact with you, but generally, even the universe itself, how you want the universe to connect with you. I think that's a great place to start. It has helped me. It's helped a lot of people in the real talk community, and I think it can help a lot of people.
I love that, Sprenko. And I think the other thing we need to share at this point is it isn't always easy, is it? Sometimes it's painful, but through that pain, we grow and we learn and we develop. And that's important, I think. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's brilliant. I would not change a word from that statement.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you, Srenko. So, Pim, you've been listening now so far. So, what do you think? One thing for anybody listening in, one thing an artist listening in could do this week to start intentionally curating their brand in a way that feels aligned and not performative. So, something practical, perhaps.
Write down in 5 words who you are or how who you want to be as an artist. Write down what you stand for, and it's also good to note that it is nothing wrong with showing the history that you have. So let's say you switched mediums throughout the years, you can definitely talk about it and you can showcase it, showcase a little timeline. This is how I started, and this is how where I'm currently at. There's nothing wrong with that. I even like it. When I look into the magazine, I always really like the parts where people are telling their history, not just the art history, but also from schools, the hobbies, what they do besides art. Always fun to read. We just take like an hour or so, pick up a piece of paper, write down who you are, what you do, and then write down who you are as an artist, what kind of art you do and have made in the past. So you write down your own history as well. And then be a little bit crazy and write down what kind of brands or businesses would I like to make art for, or what I'd like to be showcased for. Same for museums or events. That could actually give you a way of making a road for yourself where you want to be. And then, as always, just be yourself. I think that's a great tip as well, because people want to know you and not who you think they want to know. Be yourself and write down who you want to be also for yourself, where you need to live with yourself first, and then other people might have the choice, they might have the choice to live with you, yes or no. Same for collectors and businesses. So I think that's more of my practical approach.
Great advice there, Pim. And you've made me think about last week's episode where we talked about AI agents. And I'm just wondering, is there scope here for AI agents, either for artists to create their own or maybe look for one that's already out there to help with branding? What do we think to that?
Ooh. Currently, if you, again, as I also mentioned in the episode, if you're very working with AI and you're good with it and you have played around with it, then you can definitely schedule your AI agent to help you with your branding. But what an AI agent can help with is showcase your history, showcase the things you've made, and explain it to others. But then it needs all the information about the artwork itself, about you. You need to feed it with your information so people can easily access it. But for now, I think, as I also said in the last episode, a little bit too early. Maybe later on, I hope that it will be more clear in the end of the year. And otherwise, it's fun maybe for yourself to discover what would you write or send towards an AI agent that you want to build yourself. Maybe it gives you answers how to brand yourself and with your socials that you need to do by yourself, so not with an AI agent. But it can give some insights on who you currently are and what you would feed your AI agent.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think what I would say there is that AI in general holds a mirror up to us. And so anybody I think that is struggling to see themselves, which sometimes we do, if you share, openly and share your work and what you're doing and what you're building, sometimes the insights that you get back are amazing. So I don't want to go too far down that road, but anybody that missed last week's episode, well worth listening in. So we're coming to the final section of this episode of Beyond Borders. So I just want to really sum up and say that your brand doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be true. It's not about forcing a narrative or narrowing your identity. It's about amplifying what's already there in a way that helps people recognize you across time and platforms and creative growth. So before we close, I'd love a final reflection from each of you. So to Pim, what's one quiet signal in an artist brand that speaks louder than words, do you think?
Ooh. Well, eventually it does matter your portfolio and how it looks. Always have a portfolio with your artworks explained and your history ready to send to everyone for your artwork. So showcase when it was made, for example, the year or even the month if you know. And yeah, be you, be yourself. You can really notice also with the magazine if people made their own story or it's written with AI. Write it yourself first, and then you. I also do this. Make sure there are no grammar mistakes, and you use AI for that because it's a lot faster than going through your old school materials. So yeah, have your portfolio ready, showcase it everywhere, showcase your progress through the years. And if you have, for example, on Instagram, also show who you are, what you do for a day or in the weekends. It brings a genuine interest in the person and also helps with building the brand.
100%. Thank you for that. Great. What about you, Sprinko? What's one internal shift you think artists need to make if they want their brand to be not just accurate, but alive?
I would say stay true to yourself. in every facet of your growth and development, your artistry, your creative journey, your purpose in life. Stay true to yourself. Always try to find yourself, ground yourself, and reconnect with that true person within, that true identity within. Never lose sight of that. And when you do, find a way to find yourself back, because that would be the best thing you ever did for yourself, and it make it easier for people to connect with the artist behind the art.
Thank you both. That's an amazing way to end this episode. And that's it, really, for today's episode of Beyond Borders. We're not just making work, we're making meaning here. So, whether you're early in your creative journey or reinventing your identity again, remember your brand is not your box. It's a thread that lets you evolve while staying rooted. Until next time, stay curious, stay true, and keep showing up as the you that only you can be. Bye for now.